Hi everyone, I'm back with another Turf Wars video. First, I have to evaluate Nancy's response to my last challenge. I challenged you to find an animal that carries its home around with it, and you showed us some hermit crabs. That was super cool. I love them. Their shells are really interesting, and the way they come about their shells is even more interesting. I don't know if you needed the costume, but overall I'll give you 4.5 out of 5 stars for finding those hermit crabs that carry their homes around with them on their backs.
Turf Wars, a battle of wits, knowledge, and creativity. Which naturalist will prove they're the best? Choose your fighter and watch the action unfold on Turf Wars!
Nancy, you challenged me to find an organism that has adaptations to help it survive in an extreme climate. Now, I live here in the northern hemisphere at what would be considered a temperate latitude, but there is snow behind me and it's just above 0 degrees Celsius or around 35 degrees Fahrenheit right now, so I suppose extreme climate depends on what you're used to. The organism I've chosen to showcase for this harsh climate adaptations challenge is this tree, or sometimes a shrub, known as the eastern red cedar. Although it's actually not a cedar, this is a species of juniper. It's Juniperus virginiana. The first adaptation that this tree shrub thing has that helps it through the harsh climate here in northern North America is that it is a conifer. So it has these conifer type needle-like leaves. They are coated in a little bit of a waxy substance which helps protect them from cold temperatures. They are still green in the winter, which means that the tree is able to do some photosynthesis and continue feeding itself even while most of the other trees in this area have dropped their leaves and stopped photosynthesizing for the winter. And because these needles are small and tough, they don't make great food for lots of wildlife, so the tree is able to withstand any sort of browsing that a lot of other plants in this area would be subject to. White-tailed deer and most other herbivores won't touch this tree. Rabbits will only occasionally eat eastern red cedar if they are in starvation conditions, which basically means when there's no other food around. The second adaptation that the eastern red cedar has for surviving the winter is this. This is one of the blue berry-like seed cones. This is actually a cone since this plant is a conifer. And these berry-like seed cones, in addition to having a waxy substance, again, that protects them from the cold just like the needle leaves do, these are also really palatable to all of the species of birds that spend the winter here. This is an excellent winter food source for the birds, and they eat the berry-like seed cones and then disperse the seeds. So these trees get free seed planting from all of the birds eating these berry-like seed cones. Amazingly enough, a seed that has passed through the gut of a bird in this way has a 3 times better chance of germinating and growing into a new eastern red cedar as a seed that just falls out of the cone on the ground. Eastern red cedars are also resistant to both heat and cold damage, meaning they're able to survive the variety of environmental conditions that exist in their habitat all across eastern North America. And being resistant to heat and cold damage also makes them great D&D characters. They're also able to exist in soils that get occasional flooding or are really super dry during drought conditions. So these trees can survive in a lot of places. Eastern red cedars are also tolerant of extreme wind, which is really useful out here in the Great Plains of North America. And they're also tolerant of salt conditions in the soil, which means that these trees can be planted along roadsides and sidewalks to serve as windbreaks without being damaged by the salt used on roads to prevent them from icing in the winter. As if all of those tolerances and resistances weren't enough, eastern red cedars are also capable of growing on pretty much any soil, regardless of the quality of the soil. They can survive on acidic soils, alkaline soils, calcareous soils. It doesn't really matter. Pretty much any soil will do. This makes eastern red cedars great pioneers of degraded sites where the soil may have been damaged or changed in some way. So that's the eastern red cedar, an amazing organism that is truly adapted to the quote-unquote harsh climates here in eastern North America. But it's time for me to give you another challenge, Nancy. And wouldn't you know it, I don't even have to move in order to give you this next challenge. Here's one right here. This weird brownish blob on the branch of this eastern red cedar is not some sort of cancer or whatever. This is a gall. You guys have probably seen galls before on other plants. This one is special though. This is the gall of cedar apple rust, although I guess we should actually call it juniper apple rust since this tree is actually a juniper and not a cedar. But anyway, cedar apple rust is a fungal pathogen of both eastern red cedar and apple trees, and it creates these galls, or causes the tree to create these galls while it's growing on eastern red cedar. In the spring, once it starts raining, galls like this will start growing orange tentacle things. They're bright orange, and they are producing the reproductive spores for the fungus, which then float through the air and land on apple tree leaves to start the next part of their life cycle. So that's my next challenge for you, Nancy, and for anyone playing along at home. I want you to find a fungal pathogen, a fungus, living on its host. And you get bonus points if it's a species of fungus that uses 2 or more hosts in its life cycle. If you guys would like to play along at home, be sure to tag us in our social media so that we can see how you've completed the challenge. Thanks everybody, and I will see you in the next Turf Wars video. Will you be able to find some of the fungus among us to complete this next challenge? I can't wait to see what you find.